Hey guys, I'm Sean with the Comics Pals. As you can see, I am sitting. This is one of the few times today I've had the opportunity to do so, which I'm very happy about. But what I'm even happier about is the man that I am sitting next to right now. I'm having the honor of sitting next to and speaking to Mr. Wes Craig of Deadly Class fame. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, every year I come to New York Comic Con and I see you here. How many years in a row have you been here?
I've been coming to this particular convention since, like, Reed Pop is the the owner of this one and a few other, Chicago and Seattle, and yeah, I've been doing it since they started this one. So it's been like 14 years or something like that, something crazy. I'm not sure. 14 years, maybe a bit less than that. Around there though, quite a bit of time.
You're a veteran.
I'm a veteran here, yeah, for sure. I was sitting here, not in this some part of the Javits Center, but way in the back, just sitting there waiting for like one person to come by to get my Batman Strikes issue that I had drawn or whatever signed or something. Yeah, so I've been coming here for a while. I'm in Montreal, so it's an easy commute for me to get down to New York City, and I love the city, so you know.
That's awesome. Can you speak to how the convention has sort of evolved since you first started coming here?
Yeah, it's kind of like I mean, it's always been pretty crazy, but it's just one of those things that just gets more and more people like every year. But I remember at the very, very beginning, it was a bit more like traditional comic book kind of stuff. A lot of weird dudes from their parents' basements kind of coming up all weird and stuff, you know, which is fine. I'm like, everybody has that. Everybody that's in comics has that in them in some way or another, you know. But there's a bit more of that. And now it's just, I guess, just the main transformation is just the pop culture kind of aspect where it's kind of weird to see it everywhere like it is now, like in TV and movies and everything, but also it's nice because there's such a, everybody's into it. It's not, like I was just saying, it's not just like dudes like me, it's young women, older women, every ethnicity, you know what I mean? Like kind of like you look out and you see kind of every type of person, you know, which is nice, instead of just being this one or two type of people that are just into the superheroes and that's it, you know. Like there's like many different genres, all different stuff to interest different people, so it's nice to see that grow every year.
As someone who's been coming here for so long, to now sort of have a book that is incredibly popular in Deadly Class, what's it like for you to now, over the last few years, have people come up to you in costumes that you designed, characters that you created?
Yeah, that's a trip. It's crazy. It's yeah, I think for a long time I did work for Marvel and DC, big, you know, the biggest companies, but it was always like an issue of this here, an issue of that there, little fill-ins and stuff like that. So I never got along. I did a little bit of work on Guardians of the Galaxy for a while with Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning, and that was a bit of work, but it never really added up to too much of a fan base, you know, because I wasn't doing enough stuff. And I saw the change like immediately. Once I started doing Deadly Class, I was the guy that did that book, and I'm the only artist. You know, when you do something for Image, it's like you're the artist and writer. You're the only team that's going to be on that, so you get to be known as that person that does that. And yeah, it changed kind of quickly from one way to the other, where all of a sudden there was some lineups and people dressing up and people that were like, "Oh, I love your book," and that's a trip itself. Seeing people, sometimes they come up and they freak out, you know, like you can see that they're like super into it. It's just crazy to see that stuff, you know.
So obviously Deadly Class has been incredibly successful. I'm sure it's more successful than you could have ever imagined when you and Rick started on the project. How did you guys get involved with each other, and you know, how did the book come about?
Yeah, well, as we were talking about earlier, it's like I was already, I mean, on Rick's side of things, he had the idea of his experiences growing up in the 80s, kind of underground punk scene, and he also wanted to do a comic book about a school for assassins, and I don't know if either of them were working exactly well, so he kind of meshed the two together and interesting things started happening. But then he didn't have an artist for it. I think he had somebody, but that didn't work out for whatever reason, or in the early stages. But then so he's looking for an artist for it, and I was working with Lee Lowrich, the colorist of Deadly Class, on like a Batman annual or something like that. And Lee and Rick used to live down the street, so Rick's over for a drink. They're just talking, shooting the the shit, and he goes, "Oh, who's this you're coloring?" He's coloring out there as they're talking. and it was me doing this Batman. It was like a young Bruce Wayne, so it was like a child, like a teenage Bruce Wayne in Thailand. So it had these aspects that's what I'm looking for. So he gave me, all of a sudden I'm just drawing whatever, and I look over and Rick Remender is in my inbox, and I go like, what the hell, And on my end, like I was saying before, I was already a fan of his work. I loved Strange Girl, Fear Agent, and X-Force once he moved into doing his Marvel stuff. I was always a fan of his work. So he kind of called me up, pitched me on it. I was like, School for Assassins, whatever it is you want to do, I'm in. That sounds good, whatever it is, So, but we both I grew up in some Montreal punk stuff, and he had his kind of like California and Arizona punk stuff so we had pretty similar ages, so we had a lot of common experiences that we could talk back. He knew that I knew that world when he was telling me about it,
So your art is, I would say, very, very unique. And I think that it adds a lot to the book that it wouldn't have if it had literally any other artist on earth. But obviously you're more than that. What about you have you brought to the book on the creative end outside of just the art and obviously what you referenced, sort of your punk experiences and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like there's that aspect where I was there in the late 80s, early 90s, so I know it's not like, I mean, I got to do my Google references and all that stuff, but it's just to refresh my memory. But generally, I was in that world, so there's just little bits and pieces that you would only know if you were there, kind of a thing. So that helps. And like I was saying too, I'm a big fan of the artists that Rick works with. Like I love Matteo Scalera and Sean Murphy and Bengal and Jerome Opinion. All these guys are crazy artists, So on a different kind of level, like an illustration level, just beautiful stuff. And I was like, I don't feel like I can really draw like that to that level. But I'm like, what I can do, what I can bring that's I'm really good at, I think, is telling the story in an interesting way, messing with the panels and the layouts of the pages, kind of doing stuff that you maybe haven't seen before, in that kind of tradition of like Frank Miller and like Jim Steranko and B. Krigstein and Will Eisner, these kind of experimenter type of people through the years, through the history of comics. That's my favorite thing, So that's what I brought. And I don't know. People seem to say that I'm able to bring forth the emotion pretty well, which I never know if I do or not. But it seems like I hear that a lot at conventions. So apparently I'm doing my job on that too. Hopefully.
Well, I certainly agree with that. And one of the things that I love so much about the book, and I guess this isn't a question, but is that it does involve teenagers, and obviously that's a very emotionally charged period of time. And you evoke that so well through the art. And as an adult, even though I'm not necessarily going through their experiences, I can still feel it. And I wouldn't be able to feel it if the art wasn't bringing it out. So thank you for that.
Yeah, oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it. You're welcome.
So the show, right? I loved the show, Deadly Class on SyFy. Really, really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, though, we didn't get to see a second season. It's not continuing on. But one of the things that I really appreciated about it, from what I read, was that you actually were brought on to assist a lot with the art and kind of lead the art direction and things of that nature. And a few of the episodes did have those like more, I don't know, what's the right word? The animated stuff. So can you speak to that relationship and how you got involved and what was it like for you to be able to work in that environment?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, honestly, I give all credits to Rick, because I could have just been, I told Rick a lot of the time, like I'm just, one thing that happens sometimes when a TV show thing happens or a movie thing happens is that all of a sudden the comic just screeches to a halt because they're busy doing their Hollywood thing. And I was like, I want the comic book has got to keep coming out. And I'm proud that it's stalled a little bit. We had a few, like it's like the issues slowed down a little bit, but we still kept up with it more or less, with a few gaps here and there. But I was like, Rick was like, hey man, this is like a kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity. If you want to get involved in this, we can do some animated sequences. And he wanted it in there, I think, just to make it stand out and be kind of unique. Not everybody else is doing that, And we found production studios that were good at handling the art and kind of transforming that into an animated sequence. And yeah, I got involved for certain things. Certain things were kind of like for example, there's a flashback of the character Lex. And that doesn't happen in the comic book, so there's no comic book version for the studio to reference on like how it would look. So I would do like turnarounds of the characters and do little kind of keyframes and stuff like that for them to work from. And there's this Las Vegas episode where they're all on acid and it's all this crazy, super trippy aspect. And I was like, well, I got to be part of that. Like, that's going to be too much fun to not kind of have my 2 cents. That was really cool too. Adam Kane was the director of that episode, and he would Skype me and he would kind of tell me what he was thinking, and I would take, okay, cool, and I was just jot little notes, and then I'd work on the storyboards, get those over to him. So yeah, it was cool to be that involved on that level. Yeah.
So you guys have done 40 issues so far that have released. How do you keep it fresh for yourself? Because obviously you're drawing the same characters every day, and even though every issue is unique on some level because you bring something different to the table all the time, whether it's a unique panel layout or whatever it is, how do you sort of keep yourself motivated and excited to work on the same book for so long?
I mean, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. It's tough at certain. It's not tough in general. It's just tough on certain days when you're feeling kind of like, oh man, you're just tired. But it is a deadline-driven thing, so you still whether you can't wait for the muse to hit you and be inspired. You got to get it done one way or the other, So yeah, you have to keep yourself happy. Which two major things. I think it's like I have ownership of it. Me and Rick are owners of it, so it's like I feel like it's mine. I don't feel like I'm busting my butt for somebody else's thing. I'm doing it for our thing that we have together, which that helps a lot. And Rick is kind of like, he's always been very open with, we talk over the script. I feel involved. If there's a scene not working, we can talk through it and try to find a way to make it work. And then, he takes my ideas, incorporates them into the story. I get the script. And he breaks it down panel by panel, but he always knows that, again, my thing is to kind of play around with that. Sometimes that this might need less panels, sometimes it needs more, and he leaves that up to me. He doesn't try to micromanage that. So that also kind of, so I'm able to, I try to hit every story beat that he wants in the script, but aside from that, I'm able to kind of play around a bit more. So that keeps me energized, because I come up with my own ideas. Instead of just doing it straight like this, maybe I take the camera and do this crazy thing where the camera's turning around and it's upside down and blah, 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 or whatever crazy thing comes into my head, As long as it doesn't get in the way of the story too much, it's like that keeps me interested. And I like to, you got to push yourself like that in certain ways, Always keep pushing yourself. That's the thing. And look at the previous issues that you did and be like, okay, this worked, that worked, but I got to get better at that. Always looking for something to get better at, You got to kind of keep moving that way, or else it gets boring.
Yeah, absolutely. So, speaking of Rick, you guys have been working on this book for a while, and I guess how has your relationship developed over time as you've worked on this?
Yeah, I've been very flattering to him so far in this interview, so I'm going to say all the rest of it is going to be insults. He's super crazy and very hard to deal with, but no, he's totally a good dude, man. It's kind of, at first it was really like just business, He sent the contracts and stuff. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know if I'm gonna flake out. I know that he's got a solid record of producing comic books, whether it's for like getting paid by Marvel or just roughing it out on his own in the indies before that. So I knew that he did it, but he didn't know if I was going to be able to perform and to produce at a level at a regular pace like you need. So at first it was just we could tell right away off the phone we were going to get along, but you gotta you're not sure about how it's going to work out until a few months in, and then after a while it's just we totally I'm here for it. I'm all about this comic. I'm not looking to go jump take this then go jump on something else for Marvel or DC or whoever, I'm in for this. This is exactly what I want to be doing right now. So yeah, and now we're buddies, man. We talk about stuff that has nothing to do with the comic book. We talk about our personal lives, and I'm over in Montreal, he's down in California, but we get on the phone on a regular basis. He's a busy dude, but that's the thing too. He's sitting in front of the computer all day writing. So he's like, I send him an email and he'll call me, because it's he's like, man, I can't sit for one more minute in front of the computer unless I absolutely need to be writing a script, So he's like, so he calls people, which is, I'm always a texter and an emailer kind of, but it's nice to have that. You got to have that human contact kind of a thing, It makes you kind of closer. So yeah, I find that's smart that he does that. He does that with all his artists. He always calls them up and they talk out stories and stuff like that,
So, Deadly Class doesn't leave you much time to do sort of outside work. It's probably just something you have to focus on exclusively. I would imagine that you probably have some things that you want to say outside of Deadly Class. Is that the case?
Yeah, for sure. I've always kind of ever since I've been a kid, I wrote and drew my own stories. I didn't want to just be an illustrator, and I always wanted to do comics. This is literally, I just wanted to write and draw comics right off into the sunset, do that as long as somebody was willing, as long as I was able to make enough money to pay the rent, that's all I wanted to do. So yeah, so I did that before Deadly Class, and I was doing it during, like I did these Black Hand comics that are like little short stories that I was doing like while I was doing Deadly Class, just so I could have that, you know, it's just like I don't have time to do anything big or long or whatever, but I can do these little short stories. And yeah, right now, while I'm working on Deadly Class, it's like slow going, but I chip away a little bit of time every week to work on this thing that'll be hopefully the next thing I do when Deadly Class is done. I'm still going to be doing Deadly Class for 2 years, somewhere around there. Quite a bit more work to be done. We got a lot more to do before we kind of hit where we want to land. But then after that, yeah, I'm kind of slowly chipping away at a fantasy series that I would write and draw. And I've been working on it in some form or another for a long time. So I'm very, very excited about it. But you always got to keep focused on what you're doing right now and not put your head up to the sky too often. You know, just worry about this. But yeah, when it's time to do that thing, I'm going to be excited to kind of move on to that thing.
Well, I always feel that the artists who have the most unique style, who do the most unique things with the page, have a lot to say outside of just art. And so with that, I'm very excited to see what it is that, you know, Wes Craig has to say when you're the one putting the words on the paper. So that's hugely exciting for me as a fan. I mean, it's exciting for me too. Scary, obviously, too, because when you're flying a bit more solo, it's like you got no one else to look around and be like, hey, who screwed this issue up? Oh, damn it, it was me, you know? But, you know, so there's that aspect too. It's like when you're working in a team, you can look at each other in that way and like push each other up. But at the same time, yeah, I'm excited. It's a thrill when you're completely in charge of. You know exactly what you want on the page. You're writing it, you're drawing it. You know exactly like what you're looking for. And if you have a crazy idea about the page layout or the whatever, you don't have to kind of talk your team through it or anything. You know what you want. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's thrilling when it's all in your own head. You know. It's also thrilling to work in a team too. But it's kind of like they both have their own strengths and weaknesses. Well, thank you so much for your time. We've run out of time. I could talk to you all day. I appreciate you being so gracious, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the show.
All good, man. Thank you very much. Thank you. Cheers.
Do you want to say where people can find you on the internet, things like that?
Yeah, it's just Wes Craig Comics is my handle on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. So yeah, Wes Craig Comics, one word. Yeah, find me there.
Awesome. As for me, I'm with the Comics Pals. I'm Sean Bartley. You guys can find us all over the internet at the Comics Pals. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. You know how to do the internet by now. I'm going to be here all weekend talking to tons of different creators, so stay tuned for that. I won't be sitting as much, so I'll be less excited, but everyone here is beautiful, so it's a great time. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, guys.